What's up, lovely world? So, this decade, I know I know every single person on this planet on YouTube is talking about this, but this is my version of it. In this decade, I've, I've done some pretty cool things. I've read maybe 100+ books, maybe even more than that in this decade. I've seen a lot of different styles of movies this decade. I've watched a lot of TV shows, whether they be on Netflix, whether they be on iTunes, whether they be on Disney Plus. I've been to a bunch of different locations, and not only in this state, but I've been to Ohio, I've been to Hawaii, I've been to Nevada. I've been to a lot of states in this decade that I probably would never have been to. And I've been to 2 VidCons in this decade. I've been to 3 Comic Cons in this decade. I celebrated my 21st birthday in this decade. Right? I think so. I celebrated my 25th birthday in this decade. I celebrated my 30th birthday in this decade. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen some sequoia trees. I've seen snow. I've seen Disneyland numerous times. I've seen Universal Studios before Potter area was built in there. I've been to Giants games a bunch this decade. Not a whole lot, but I've been to a few SF Giants games this decade. I just have experienced so much in this decade. This decade from 2010 to 2019 has been amazing. I got to go to my 10-year high school reunion in this decade. And here's the thing. The next decade is probably going to be just as amazing. I get to celebrate my 35th birthday in this new decade. I get to celebrate my 40th birthday in this new decade. Maybe go to my 20-year high school reunion this decade. Go back to Disneyland this decade. I want to go to New York this new decade. I want to go back to Universal Studios this decade. I would like to go to Big Bear this decade sometime. And maybe go to another San Francisco Giants game this decade. Or maybe even go to a Golden State Warriors basketball game this decade. And maybe go to a San Jose Sharks game this decade. These are just some small things. I want to get a PlayStation 4 this decade. It's just all these little things that we take for granted could be made possible in a new decade. But do not misinterpret this. The last decade was pretty good too. And it's not just because, the Harry Potter movies ended, even though that was a sad time for me in 2011. And it's not just because you got to see Jurassic World and the movies and, the Fantastic Beasts films also. Fast and Furious. I could go on and on about all of the movies I've seen. And there's still so many great films to be released in the new decade. There's more possibilities of me going back to VidCon this new decade. Maybe going to more Comic Cons this decade. All of these things are going to tie so well into the 2020 to 2029. I've seen 3 decades. Is that right? Yeah, 3 decades. Because I'm 30. And I was born in 89. And it's now 2019. So I've seen 3 decades so far in my life. I want to see a 4th. maybe even a 5th, a 6th, a 7th, an 8th, a 9th, maybe even a 10th decade. Who knows what's going to happen for me in this body, in this life. But I've seen 3 decades so far. And those decades have been amazing. But this next decade could be just as amazing. Could be just as epic as the last one. Could be, anything. I mean, look at all the events that I could go to in the new decade. I'd like to go, like I said, I'd like to go back to a VidCon. I'd like to go back to a bunch of Comic-Cons. I'd like to go to my 20-year high school reunion. I'd like to do something special for my 35th birthday. And even my 40th birthday. And I'd like to, travel a little bit more. Not just around California. Maybe go to other places in Nevada. Go to Arizona. Go to, New York. Maybe go back to Orlando. Or in Florida. And, see different. And maybe go to Texas and visit my cousin who lives there now. Maybe go to, back to Ohio and see my family again that lives there. And maybe go to, to DC again. It's all these, I think I may have gone to DC in this past decade, but I don't remember when that was. And, go to, any state really. Maybe go back to Hawaii again. I don't know what 2020 through 2029 is going to look like. But I'm hoping at least a couple of the things that I mentioned in this video for the new decade will happen. And the last decade was the best decade I had. But I think the next decade will be just as great. We still have 3 days left of this decade. But those 3 days are going to fly by. Actually, it's 4 days, but 3.5-ish days. So, I would like to hear what you guys did in this decade that was memorable for you in the comment section down below. Whether it was traveling to another country, whether it was, doing something fun, like going to a concert. Oh, speaking of which, I went to a couple concerts in this decade. Even though, I went to junior college for a couple years, and then I dropped out because I didn't feel like it was the right move for me. I started this YouTube channel. I started my Twitter account. I started my Instagram account. I started my Twitch account. I started my Facebook account. All in this decade. And it's been great to be on social media these days. I've seen all of the Star Wars films, even though, only a couple of them came out in this decade. There's only been 5. The 2 standalones and the 3 episodes have come out in this decade. And, it's just amazing. Of all the things on this planet, this decade was pretty good to me. But I believe that next decade can be just as good, or if not better, or magnificent, or awesome. It's just my opinion. You guys all have a great day. I will see you tomorrow on Vlogmas Day 29. And then there's only 2 days till 22.5 days until 2020. You all know the drill. Get real. Bye-bye.